One of the most iconic plants within the PvZ universe, with the ability to shoot in 5 different directions, making it basically usable in any situation with minimal downsides. And today, I wanted to test out just how good it was in PvZ2. So, I maxed it out and put it up against the entire game by itself. But before we can see how it performed, let me show y'all the rules. Only Starfruit, no power-ups or Zen Garden, skip all levels that force the use of another plant, pre-placed plants are fine, and lastly, coins earned throughout the challenge can be used to buy plant food, but no replaying levels to farm coins. Okay, that's all for the rules. Let's begin. We start off in the earlier days of ancient Egypt, where I'm going to be fast forwarding through several levels as I explain the max level stats of the Starfruit. And to start off, its sun cost goes from 150 at level 1 to 75 at level 10. Its recharge rate goes from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. Its health goes from 300 to 900. Its normal damage goes from 20 to 120, but then there's also the plant food power damage, which goes from 80 to 480. There's also a projectile velocity increase that goes from its normal speed to a 1.6x multiplier. And lastly, since it is Mastery 200, it also has the Mastery buffs, which it has about a 20% chance to plant food as soon as I place it down. And then there's also a Pierce bonus, which is basically a 200% damage increase at all times. And I'm not gonna lie, with this insane stats and the ability to shoot behind itself, I can't really see the Starfruit losing, but we'll just have to see, as now we'd beaten day 14 of ancient Egypt, and day 15 wasn't much more difficult than the previous days, as this time we had 3 sun producers to support us, which allowed me to spam down even more Starfruits. Day 17 there was a special challenge where we could only use 14 plants, but we never end up using more than like 5, so it didn't really matter. Day 18 was the first day where we prepped some defenses. And the next interesting thing within ancient Egypt happens on day 23, where this Gargantuar is sent in, but before it can fully even make it onto the tile, it's forced to launch its imp and is taken out immediately. So the damage on this guy is pretty insane. And this also meant we made it to the last day of ancient Egypt, where we again prepped defenses. And with that, we had beaten all of ancient Egypt using just a max level Starfruit. So let's see how it does in the The Pirate Seas has a slightly different placement strategy compared to ancient Egypt, since we have some of the lanes that are missing the tiles, and it's not really that big of a difference. It's basically just planting an extra Starfruit where there's a missing lane so we can take care of the seagulls and the swinging pirates. But then there's also some instances like day 4 where the swinging pirates get taken out by the Starfruits way up front, but it's kind of just random because you can see this next pirate didn't get attacked, so we had to plant another Starfruit to take care of it. I'm not gonna lie, nothing really interesting happens in the earlier days of the Pirate Seas, so we move straight forward to day 15, where we have to protect these flowers in the back from being trampled on. And as some of the zombies can catch you off guard like the imp cannons, I made sure to plant a lot more Starfruits on this level, which ended up guaranteeing our win. Day 16, we have to protect these 2 spring beans, and here it can be a little awkward as the Starfruits can't shoot right in front of them, and they kind of shoot at an angle to their adjacent lanes, which makes it seem like the barrel rollers could be scary since they launch their imps right when they break and the imps go forward a little bit. But thankfully, right as the imp is touching the Starfruit is then able to hit it. And since they do have the HP buff from 300 to 900, they can tank a few hits from the zombies. And even better, by the final wave, we had Starfruits in the column of the spring bean, and those guys were able to pretty easily hit the zombies coming into the 2 lanes, meaning we'd successfully protected the spring beans. Day 22, though nothing interesting happens, people do usually like seeing it, so we're gonna make a stop here. And normally this is a pretty satisfying level because all the imps get launched and then attacked, but since the Starfruits are pretty overpowered, they kind of just take out all the imp cannons before they can even shoot the imps out, making this level not as satisfying as usual. But this also meant that we made it to the last level of Pirate Seas, which was day 24, where we again have to protect 2 spring beans, this time in a little bit more dangerous of a position, mainly because sometimes the pirates swing onto the spring beans, so it can be a little scary. But thankfully, since the spring beans can land 1 attack before falling asleep, it kind of comes in handy, ensuring that they aren't just instantly destroyed by the pirates. And when the final wave came in, I just used a plant food because I didn't want to deal with the imp cannons, meaning we'd be in all of Pirate Seas using just a max level Starfruit. And next up is the The Wild West, though it does have the mine carts which allow us to maneuver our plants around if we want to, we never really end up using them this time since the Starfruit can kind of just attack anywhere at all times, and since its cost is only 75 sun, I can always assure that I have a pretty decent amount of them down. And again, the first several levels are pretty trivial, so we skip straight to day 10 where we first see the Chicken Wrangler come in, and I'm not gonna lie, they kind of caught me off guard here because the Starfruit ended up making the levels go by too fast since they were killing the zombies very quickly, meaning I couldn't properly prepare for the Chicken Wranglers that were about to come in, so you saw that the chickens in the bottom lane ended up taking that lawnmower. But of course, I did make sure to instantly plant a Starfruit in that lane since there were probably going to be more chickens there, as you saw there were, so I used a plant food on the Starfruit this time. And basically, with all the lanes at least having one Starfruit in them, we defended pretty easily. And if I ever saw something about to go bad, I would just use a plant food to get rid of the chickens. So we were pretty reliably able to beat the level. Day 11 had a pretty interesting restriction where we're only allowed to use 500 sun, and since there's such a huge restriction within this level, the game also doesn't send in that many zombies. And if you've been noticing, with all the previous levels, I rarely spend more than 500 sun on a level, making this probably one of the easiest levels if you don't count the first few days of Ancient Egypt. Day 13 we also beat pretty easily, but day 14 we take a little stop on because it's the second level that the chickens appear in. But as I've done this challenge over 20 times and beaten all of PvZ2 over like 25 times at this point, I of course already knew that the Chicken Wrangler was coming in, so I stalled out that first zombie until I had a pretty decent amount of sun and could safely place a Starfruit in every lane before the Chicken Wrangler came in. And this made it extremely easy to deal with them, and I ended up beating the level without losing a single lawnmower this time. Day 16 we have to protect this walnut, and like normal my Starfruits are placed pretty far forward because I know they can defeat the zombies very quickly and won't get eaten, so the walnut is successfully defended. Day 17 is the first level within the Wild West where we have to protect sunflowers from being trampled on, but this level itself is actually pretty easy, but there is a harder version of this within the Wild West, which is day 23 where there's a restriction of us only losing 2 plants within the level, and we have to protect these flowers from being trampled on. But even worse, there's Chicken Wranglers within this level, and of course having this knowledge before starting the level, I made sure to stall the first zombie out until the last second, and again collected sun until I had enough to place them in every single lane, which quickly after placing down the Starfruits I was much more confident that I could win. But there was still of course the problem of losing Starfruits since I could only lose 2 plants, and even though the buff from 300 health to 900 health is pretty good, it's actually not that crazy, so these 2 Starfruits in the front were in a bit of a danger zone. And throughout this level I usually had the plant food in the bottom left selected just in case I needed to use it at a moment's notice, and there was a couple of times that I had to use the plant foods because the chickens were approaching in massive numbers. But after getting down 2 columns with the Starfruit I felt much safer, and we eventually ended up beating the level, meaning we'd made it to the last level of the Wild West, which is day 24, and we have to protect these 3 walnuts and minecarts from the incoming zombies. And again, the main problem within this level is the Chicken Wranglers, as they can sometimes get stuck on the walnuts and you don't realize it as they slowly eat away at their health. So I did place the Starfruit way up front just in case if this happened, and this actually did come in handy because there were some chickens in the middle lane that started dealing damage to the walnut, but the Starfruit ended up taking them out, and eventually we were able to defeat day 24, meaning we'd be in all of the Wild West using just the max level Starfruit. But let's see how they perform in the world, which is a little bit more annoying than usual, named And the obvious answer to the Frostbite Caves being annoying is its snowstorms. But since the Starfruit can shoot in all 5 directions, if you have a couple of them down, it kind of guarantees that they all stay unfrozen at most times. Because let's say one gets frozen, the other one is just instantly able to unfreeze it. And it kind of just becomes a repetitive cycle of that over and over again. Even levels like Day 11, which are normally known for having a ton of snowstorms, aren't really a match for the Starfruit. Because even without a heating plant, they're able to stay out of the ice. Day 13 of Frostbite Caves is a little different because I send in the Gargantuar of the world, and for this I did place down an extra column of the Starfruit towards the back by the flowers because I know the Gargantuar gets sent in the very bottom lane every single time, but I actually ended up plant fooding a Starfruit which instantly took out the Gargantuar and the column in the back wasn't even needed. And next I'm going to jump straight to day 22 where a potential threat is introduced, which is the Weasel Hoarder zombie that unleashes its weasels like the chickens from the Wild West. But like I mentioned, in nearly every challenge run, the weasels end end up being easier than the chickens and aren't much of a threat. Day 23, we have to protect these chard guards in the back, but we also have these frozen twin sunflowers that give us sun as soon as we break them out of the ice. And then we get more sun whenever we shovel them. And this kind of just allows us to spam down Starfruits, which makes the snowstorms that throw the zombies right onto the chard guards not a problem at all. Our next stop is day 27, where we have to protect these rutabaga in the back. And this level, like usual, doesn't have any snowstorms, but it sends in a bunch of tanky zombies like the ice pushers and gargantuars. And you really just want powerful plants for this level. And since the Starfruit at max level is exactly that, we don't really struggle here at all. Which leads us to day 28 of Frostbite Caves, which is the last level that we play of the world. And having this unbeatable setup of Starfruit meant that we had now beaten all of the Frostbite Caves using just a max level Starfruit. So let's see how it fares up in the next two worlds, being the Lost City and the Far Future. I'm combining like I do for a lot of plants because again, they're just worlds that are extremely easy. The Lost City obviously provides us with the gold tiles, which make the sun production not a problem, and at the same time they allow us to just spam down our Starfruits. The one potential threat that you might have had in mind was the shovel zombie, but since the Starfruit can shoot behind itself, you can just attack the shovel zombie from behind and destroy it very easily. And there really isn't anything else in this world that can really match up against the Starfruit, so I'd been beaten pretty easily. The Far Future on the other hand was even easier because there isn't a zombie in this world like the shovel zombie that can semi-survive the attacks of the Starfruit. The only semi-threat, if you can even call it that, are the tanky zombies like the cone mechs or the all-star mechs, but those guys die in literally like 4 to 5 shots as well. So just like that, all of the Lost City and the Far Future had been pretty easily beaten using only a max level Starfruit. But next up, we faced a Jester in the Dark Ages. We of course have the gold bloom to provide us with sun because otherwise no plant could make it through this world except for something like a toadstool. And since the sun problem is solved, the only real threat of this world ends up being the Jester zombie, which is introduced on night 5. And this guy can actually shoot back the Starfruit's shots, but you'll see here once the Starfruits have an angle that they can hit the Jesters from the sides or behind, they're actually able to defeat them. And I actually found out that the Starfruits can beat the Jesters from the front as well if you just use a plant food on them. So yeah, the most difficult part of this world had also been trivialized. I mean, day 12 seemed a little scary at first, but I just spammed plant foods and we got through it. I'll also stop by on day 17. Even though it wasn't difficult, it was kind of just cool to see because it kept on spawning in the sun gravestones, and I was able to just spam down a ton of my Starfruits for the first time. But that aside, we'd made it to night 19, which is the last level we play of the Dark Ages, where we have to protect these 3 magnet shrooms. And this level can be a little scary because I know there's Jesters spawned in the lanes of the magnet shrooms, so if the Starfruit shoots too many stars at the Jesters from up front, the magnet shroom can be taken out. So I made sure that I had nearly double Starfruits in every lane that the magnet shrooms were in, protecting them. And as soon as I saw the Jesters came in, I made sure to use a plant food to instantly take them out. And just like that, we had beaten all of the Dark Ages using just a max level Starfruit. And by the results so far, you could probably guess how well the Starfruit performs in. Again, I ended up combining the Neon Mixtape Tour and the Jurassic Marsh like I did with Lost City and the Far Future because they weren't worlds that really threatened us at all. The Neon Mixtape Tour is a world where there's usually just a lot of zombies and they come in pretty fast when the music starts playing, but the Starfruits don't really even give them a chance to get far as they instantly defeat them whenever they get into that first tile. So this world is defeated very easily. The Jurassic Marsh on the other hand is easy for the most part, but there is one dinosaur that can be annoying, which is the T-Rex. And if you remember what the chickens did in the Wild West where they kind of caught me off guard, you can think similarly that's what the T-Rexes did as well. So as long as I made sure that I was prepared for the T-Rexes, this world wasn't that difficult either. And even with the T-Rexes, we always had the lawnmowers in the back giving us a second chance even if the zombies got through. And just like that, we had beaten all of the Jurassic Marsh using just a max level Starfruit. So let's see how it performs in the Even though we've made it to the Big Wave Beach, which is supposed to be one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult world, the max level Starfruit is kind of just too overpowered. And I know it's been a pretty long time, but if you remember how the Lightning Reed did in its run, the Starfruit was basically on par with how much it was decimating the zombies. Like even the semi-difficult levels, like day 23 where the fishermen are introduced, became trivialized because the Starfruit just didn't give them a chance. Even day 25 where a lot of the plants struggled to get the 10 zombies in 5 seconds was defeated, the Starfruit basically just needs one plant food and it's instantly able to reach the goal. Day 30, which is probably the level that's defeated the most amount of plants on their runs, was no match for the Starfruit. So just like that, we had beaten all of the Big Wave Beach using just a max level Starfruit, and you can probably guess what it did to Modern Day has a special thing with the portals where it spawns in zombies from different worlds, and we kind of just saw the Starfruit decimate every single zombie from every single world, so you can kind of just assume the portals aren't going to do much, even the ones that are spawning in the gestures. The only level that was semi-scary was day 12, and that was because some chicken wranglers caught me off guard and some chickens made it all the way to a lawnmower, and then some shovel zombies came in that shoveled my Starfruits out of the map because I had them placed too far up front, but you really only need like 2 to 3 Starfruit to defeat a level, so this wasn't very much of a problem. I would say the actual real problem of Modern Day is introduced on day 21, which is the football zombie, and this was mainly because I kept placing my Starfruits way up front, so the football zombie was instantly able to just take them out, and for some reason I kind of just refused to place them in the back, so I definitely ended up wasting a lot of sun here, but we still did end up winning. Which brings us to the last technically difficult level of Modern Day, where we have to protect these flowers from being trampled on, and the main threats are the football zombies. But then when I saw 2 football zombies not able to take out my Starfruits, I realized that this level wasn't going to be difficult either. And usually on this level, I end up spam buying a lot of plant foods using my coins, but that wasn't needed as the normal amount of plant food from the level was enough. And this meant that we had now made it to the final level of Modern Day, which is day 23. And since it's an easier level than day 30, it meant that we had beaten all of Modern Day and all of Plants vs Zombies 2 using just a max level Starfruit. This was probably the most dominating plant we've had since the lightning raid, and this also means we've made it to the end of the video, so let me know if there's any other plants you want me to try. Okay, bye bye.